Let's start. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marco Bornelli. I'm the Stagecraft Department Coordinator, and I'm warmly welcome you to this first edition of Cycle of Seminars with International Visiting Scholars. Accademia Teatro alla Scala organized these initiatives in the framework of the ARCnet project, founded by Next Generation U and coordinated by our Accademia. Before leaving the floor to our special first guest lecturer, I will quickly introduce the main topic because today is the first session of this cycle of seminar. Together with my colleague Umberto Bellodi, the head of International Project Department and the scientific coordinator of the ARCnet project by Accademia, we decided to focus this cycle to the cross-sector skills in the cultural and creative industries, CCIs, with a particular focus on the approach to digital technology. The focus of interest of both Accademia and also the ARCnet project is how innovations in the labor market can provide new impetus to education, and how symmetrically schools can stimulate innovation in the labor market, in the professional world. The digital evolution of the last 30 years have radically changed the ecosystem of professions, skills, and production process in the labor market. In 2002, the American economist Richard Florida wrote an essay entitled "The Rise of the Creative Class," in which he predicted the rise of a new social class, the creative class, which would guarantee the economic development of modern cities. Florida defines the creative class as those workers whose primary activity consists of creating new ideas, new technologies, or new content. It includes two main groups. On one hand, scientists, engineers, researchers, software developers, media and entertainment professionals. On the other hand, artists, musicians, writers, graphic designers, architects, and so on. This class, the creative class, differs from the traditional working class because its capital is innovation, which can develop thanks to the 3 T's formula, 3 T's conditions. The first T is talent, high quality of human resources training. The second T is technology, an innovative ecosystem made up of universities, laboratories, startups, and digital infrastructure. The third T is tolerance, cultural openness towards diversities and minorities. If Florida's model proved correct during the economic and financial crisis in 2001 and 2008, when the creative class was crucial for boosting the global economy, today, because of new technologies, this model seems unlikely to work anymore. That's why another writer, Scott Timberg, in 2015, wrote an essay opposing Florida's, entitled "Culture Crash, the Killing of Creative Class." For example, in a recent research conducted by Dr. Francesca Martinelli for Studio Doc and presented in a previous ARCnet conference that you find it online on the YouTube Accademia channel, call it From STEM to STEAM, the level of trust in artificial intelligence among technical theater workers is moderate, while the perceived opportunities include efficiency, cost reduction, and new creative possibilities. The risks are job loss due to the skilling, erosion of skills, standardization of content, and copyright violations. The labor market of technical theater employees is in fact dominated by micro-enterprises with difficulty assessing structured reskilling programs. Furthermore, for example, in Italy, the majority of employees are advanced age, less inclined to embrace these innovations because they are attached to the craft techniques. So how can digital innovation can be an opportunity, not only a strength for CCIs? How can Florida's prophecy about the rise of the creative class continue to hold true? And how can technology still need talent? Probably the answer we can give to these questions today is to observe the phenomenon from a cross-sectoral perspective. Skills related to new technologies can be applied in multiple sectors, allowing people to work effectively in different contexts and integrate knowledge from different disciplinary areas. In this cycle of international lectures with visiting scholars, we will explore and analyze the role of digital technology and AI in the cultural and creative industries from a cross-sector perspective, with the most important experts in the field. The main topic is divided into 3 sub-clusters. The first, we start tomorrow with Professor Paolo Benanti, on the context and emerging challenges and questions regarding the system of skills and professions in general. The second, with Professor Christman Goethen and Larry Bush in March, on cross-sector opportunities and tools related to digital technology. And the third, that we start today, the third cluster, with all female lecturers, which proposes techniques and examples in which digital technology and AI have been used in the entertainment sector, and how can open up spaces for new cross-sectoral skills and professions. So I would like to thank Mr. Franziska Ritter, scenographer, researcher, and educator in the fields of art, culture, and theater, for being here with us today with her panel entitled Immaterial Theater Spaces. I wish you all good start to the seminars. Thank you very much.
So welcome from my side, and thanks a lot for this warmth and welcoming invitation to speak here today. And I'm really happy to see so many female and male persons in that hall, and you are the right ones. I mean, of course we had thought that there are a bit more students, but you are the right ones. So welcome from my side, coming from Berlin this morning. And to introduce myself, yes, I am really into the cross-sectional area of arts. So I'm a scenographer, but I'm also a musician. I'm playing the flute. I'm a theater researcher. I'm a lecturer and a cultural entrepreneur. So I founded also my own company named One-to-One Concerts. Maybe you heard of it. It's the smallest concert format where one musician plays for one listener, and that's what I did during the pandemic and still doing. But my main job is at the Technical University of Berlin. It's a stage design and scenography program. It's a Master of Arts. And there I'm an assistant professor and teaching as well. What I'm mainly talking about today came out of a project I did for the DTHG, which is the German Association of Theater Technique in Germany. Like the Oyster representative organization, maybe you know it. And I think that's where the invitation came from, so I'm quite familiar with Christman Goethen and all the other international experts dealing with theater technique or theater architecture. So there we founded the Center for Digitality and New Technologies in 2020, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the main questions we discussed for that talk is how can immersive technologies such as virtual and augmented reality unfold their potentials in front of, behind, and on stage. So I thought of like having like 3 parts this afternoon. We have time until 5 o'clock, but we will do little breaks because it's 3 hours is quite a long time. So we do an hour, then we do a little break, another hour, and so on. And we always have little question and answer sessions in between. So the first topic will be about theater heritage and experience design for visitors, so in front of stage. The second one, we could talk about education and learning and tools, like production tools, how we can use the technology for that field. And the third one, we go more to stage design and co-creation and performance, so more the artistic part of the technology. We can also switch if somebody of you is more interested in the other part, so I'm kind of flexible with that. I brought a lot of examples, but we can, you know, see how it goes. Yeah, first of all, maybe we do a little interactive exercise. So what is digital? I mean, because I'm the first one here in that lecture, maybe we discuss that. And I have a little Mentimeter, and I guess you all have your smartphone with you. So let's see how that goes. How that goes here. There should be a QR code. Do you see that? Okay. Maybe you scan it, and you can type in some words. What do you think? What is digital? Could be quite creative and open-minded. Does it work? Okay, 7 responded. And you probably have to press send, and then words should appear. Do you understand the question? I can help. I mean, I'm trying to speak easy English, but if you have any questions, just interrupt and ask, and maybe somebody can translate or help. Okay, did anybody press send already? Okay, maybe I have to. A different way to communicate, probably. Interesting that comes first. There's nothing wrong or right, so everything is right. Should be more. Interactive, great. So just press send, or what is it? Enter. A good practice, nice. I will send you the presentation later. Anything else? You could also type in the same if you agree with it, or find another word. Is it a habit, or is it a technology, or what is it? Common sense, daily life, a new type of world, right? Another modality, yeah. There should come some more. I don't know, is it technical problems or is it slow? Okay, so please come to an end. If there's anything you can send it. Okay. So, if you talk about digitization, as we often do, that was yesterday. Digitality is today, and digital is normal, and that is something which you, in your answers, as I understood it, totally agree with. So it refers to connections based on digital encoded media and technologies. So what I found interesting is that it's really about connections between humans and objects, or between objects. And if you put your focus on the connections, I think this is a real interesting thing you could have in mind while watching all the other projects I brought with me. So I don't know what this is doing now. It's in Italy. It's okay. Maybe somebody can solve that or be ignored. But if you think of digital, there's also this interesting thing about the finger, because it like also in Italy, huh? What is the name? Dito. Like, comes from fingers, and that's like what the humans did quite early, like counting with the finger without electricity. So the word in its meaning from Latin comes from digitality, fingers, numbers, counting 0, 1. So that is how the name itself came to us. So in fact, also that is communication, because without electricity we could communicate how many things or fingers we had. So the German researcher Lars Mecklenburg said significant areas of our lives have been digitized. Consequently, they are now digital. We live in a digital world, a digital society, a digital culture. Anyone reading this is part of that culture. So also Felix Stalder focused on digital does not describe the technology, but rather a form of communication, as you already pointed out in the word cloud. Verbal, written, media-based, and more recently, digital. So it's just another form of communication, a specific form of communicative behavior. So for me, when I work with theater, I really often have this dualism between the analog world. I mean, thanks a lot, we've seen the workshops of the Scala, this beautiful analog world, and when it comes to digital, they always feel this dualism, okay, the analog world and the digital world. And I think before starting my lecture, I think it's really important to stop that discussion. It is not a dualism thing, it's something which could coexist and really be intertwined. So we don't have to leave the analog to be digital or the other way around, so we can always, of course, we always have both. So talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, all those names you already read, you know, VR, AR, MR, XR, what reality, I find it really confusing, all those buzzwords people are using. And so it's really important, if you have questions, ask me or just raise your hand, because I think talking about such sophisticated topics, it's really important that we understand each other, because it is about communication. So I kind of try to give a little overview. I'm not sure if this is something completely new for you or if you are an expert in that. So you can give me some feedback, but I'm going through some basic knowledge that it's easier to understand, right? So the X before the reality, because this is all real, right, is formally as extended reality or cross reality. That are all words with an X in it, but the X is also a variable and a variable, which can mean a lot more. So basically we can decide between different forms of immersion. I will come to that word. But if you look at the virtual reality thing, you know, he has got a glass, goggles on his head, where he really is completely in a digital 3D world, surrounded by a new world. It's a simulation of a world, right? And as you can see, he has a lot of fun. He's really into it. If it comes to augmented reality, as the name augmented says, it's blending the real world with digital information. So it's an overlay of digital things. You can do it with your smartphone or with glasses or with your iPad, so different devices. And also for the VR goggles, there are different devices, right? And now it gets complicated. There's also this thing called mixed reality, because technology is really developing quite fast. So we have, of course, like things which are mixed. You have the augmented reality things, and the glasses, like since some years, are able to interact with 3D objects in the real world. So we call them MR glasses. So this kind of is like 5 years ago, we divided between virtual and augmented reality, but nowadays we can also already talk about the mixed reality. So there are all kinds of in-between stuff. So if you see the virtual reality systems, you have a lot of different glasses, starting with the Google Cardboard. This is all already virtual reality. Yeah? You look through some glasses, there's an iPhone in it or a phone, and it can get really expensive and complicated. And of course, we have a lot of American, like Meta and so on, putting a lot of money in it. as you can see, there are like the difference between those technologies or those methods of creating new realities is the grade of immersion. I don't know, is there an Italian word for it? Immersion is it in Germany, but it's something meant to how you can dive into something or to be surrounded by something or how emotionally touched you are. And there are 4 different types of immersion. The first one is spatial immersion, the feeling of being physically present in the virtual environment. But also, I mean, if you are in a swimming pool, that would also be a spatial immersion, right? It's not only in virtual worlds that you could be immersed by something, yeah? The second one would be the ludic immersion. Ludic comes from playing, yeah? From acting, from interacting. Immersion through actions, game mechanics and controls, and that is often associated with the flow state. So I don't know if you or your friends are into gaming or PlayStation or whatever, if you're really into it because you have to interact a lot, this would be the second one, the ludic immersion. And of course there's the narrative immersion, immersion in a story, created through a plot, through characters, and coherent storytelling. So, and also, if you have a really good book, you could be quite immersed. But of course there are virtual reality experiences where the narrative immersion, and I will show you in a second, a project which really deals with the third one, really gets you into the project and into the world. And of course, the fourth one, quite important, is the social or the empathic immersion. Bonding with avatars or characters in the VR, in the virtual world, which conveys the feeling of being part of a social group. I mean, also here in that lecture, you could be immersed, or you could, you know, text your friends, and kind of, this is kind of a degree of immersion. You have questions to that term? Is that new for you, or you already? I found it quite interesting to really deep dive into that term. So we are always talking about those new technologies, right? Virtual augmented reality, but in fact, it's nothing new. If you see on the left side, maybe you know from theater history class, hopefully, that's the Pepper's Ghost effect. It's 1863, and you know, here they, through a projector and light and a glass or foil, they projected the ghost on stage. So the projected image on stage in a kind of 3-dimensional manner. It's nothing else than an augmented reality thing, because they projected on a layer something on top of the real world. So kind of looking at that image, I always find like theater is the perfect first virtual reality thing, like the proto-virtual reality. It comes out of theater. And as well, like, as you know, probably those small gadgets, like, it's nothing else than a stereoscopic screen, yeah? Quite early they experimented with lenses in front of the eye. So it comes from 160 years of history. So coming from there, we thought in our project, we founded in 2020, let's bring the theater and immersive technologies, and here you have the name, like immersive, coming from immersion and technologies, VR, AR, XR, bring them together. And when there's theater, we not only mean like theater on stage, theater buildings, we also mean like archives, academies, people working there behind the scenes. So we have a quite wide term of theater. Let's bring them together and see what happens. We wanted to deep dive into that question mark. So what are the potentials of bringing them together? And we researched a lot, but we also produced and we prototyped some projects together with a lot of different partners. So just to give the scope, we were funded by the German Beauftragte der Bundesregierung, hosted by the Deutsche Theatertechnische Gesellschaft, and that was my lovely team together with Pablo. I did the project lead, and we had Lea, Sasha, Maria, and Vincent working with us in Berlin for about 3 years on that project, Material Theater Spaces. Subtitle was Augmented Virtual Reality for Theater, and what we did is looking at the immersive technologies in 3 different areas. So as a tool, as a communication aid, yeah, or as experience, And we looked at 3 different disciplines. So, because I'm an architect originally, I studied architecture, we looked at theater architecture, we looked at theater technology, and we looked at stage design. Of course, always having in mind that in the middle of that process, it's about us, about the human beings working with it, experience it as a visitor or using it as teacher or technicians. So we had in total 6 different projects, and the first one we will deep dive into is the opening night at the Große Schauspielhaus Berlin, and it's about bringing theater heritage to life. You know the Große Schauspielhaus Berlin? Is this something, I don't know how it is in Italy, is a building in Berlin which is not existing anymore, but was quite famous. It was built in 1919 by architect Hans Pölzig and German theater director Max Reinhardt. Maybe that's a name you know from theater history. So we Germans are quite proud of that couple and of that building, because as you can see, it has this famous stalactite roof. Maybe that's, you know, this kind of an iconic picture, and those wonderful columns in the foyers. This building is, here you see the 2 of them, and to mention Marlene Pölzig, which is the wife of Hans Pölzig, she's often forgotten in the research, but she did a lot on the design of the Kanzler, for example, and also on the construction side, because her husband was in Dresden and she managed the building site. I just want to mention it because it's often forgotten in the research. So that was the place in the middle of Berlin where it was standing. It's not standing anymore, so it was in the 80s, it was demolished. So what still is there are wonderful pictures and drawings in the Architectural Museum of the Technical University where I am working, and this is part of collections I worked in to digitize. It's interesting, so my job was here to digitize those objects and to bring them into a database, to secure them and to describe them and to make them public for researchers. So what we had is this wonderful object collection, and also the original drawings by Pölzig from 1919 and also from 1939, where the Nazis, the National Socialists, came and restructured the building. They cut it off because it was kind of a Jewish building. They cut it off the roof. So to go back, maybe why it's famous for is you have those. I'm not going into theater history now, but I think it's really interesting to see what Pölzig and Reinhardt invented is getting the stage deep into the audience hall. You see that like a tomb. So that's why this building is famous for, like, the players are really in the audience hall. So like a really 360-degree theater. And it's in the 20s, so it's quite early. They experimented with those forms of stage. Here you can see it. Could be with chairs or without chairs, so it's kind of really flexible thing. I show some more pictures of those wonderful ceiling, and as you can imagine, acoustic was terrible, unfortunately. But it was really nice to play inside there. So we have the foyer pictures, and I mean, this is all we got. We have all those beautiful pictures, but it's really complex, this building. And you've seen the pictures from 1919, we have material from 1940, but our job was to reconstruct this building from 1927. So Max Reinhardt then gave it to Eric Charel for the music, like more musical style, so dancing and singing. And our journey, or like our anniversary, we wanted to celebrate together with the Friedrichstadtpalast, which is one of the biggest stages in Europe for musical or show or revue. That was our cooperation partner. They wanted to celebrate their 100th university of that era of building. So the difficulty was to reconstruct this building, because that was the aim, to make it visible and make it experienceable in a three-dimensional manner, to find a solution out of 1919, 1940, and we also had a film was taking place in 1943. So we had some screenshots from that film to really see how was that stage area made, because it was an iron curtain opening to the side, for example, which is not very often. Huh? Normally the iron curtain comes from above, and to really see how that worked, and a lot of staircases on stage, so crazy stage. So that was the material. And then we started to basically reconstruct the building. And we used the archive material, and software was Blender. I don't know if you are working with Blender. No? Or maybe Rhino or some other software, but we use Blender because it doesn't cost anything. It's quite open. And our 3D developer, Sasha and Lea, used the plans to get as near as possible to, well, the original. But we can discuss what is original. I mean, the plans from Pelzig are only plans, so they are virtual. A lot of decisions were made on site, so and nobody can prove because it's not there anymore. So kind of we try to be as near as possible, and as you can see here, we also use the old pictures to check if the dimensions are right. So that was kind of an interesting method to use old archival material to reconstruct that. And here you see the, let's say, naked building, and we run through it, the foyers. And as you can see, well, interesting, but kind of, yeah, looks naked and kind of, you probably would go there for 2 or 3 minutes, but then, but wonderful. I mean, the first time we really could see this non-existing building in 3D on our VR headset or on screen. So you have it in a one-to-one dimension. So the next step was that we, because we are scenographers, we talked a lot about how the appearance of that virtual reality experience should be. So we discussed about the paper look, because it was more than a sketch, like a drawing thing, and how do we get this atmosphere of the 20s, yeah, 20s, 30s, like through costumes or through easy figures. So we did some costume studies on how the people should look like in there. And it gets more and more complex the further you go, and you see it is really like, as a stage designer creates a stage, like for virtual worlds you also have to think about that, of course. How's the look and feel, how are like objects in space, how's the lighting. So we did a lot of sketches, like how's the outline, how much outline does it need, or is it how you get this sketchy feeling, but at the same time you want security and, you know, give people in virtual reality kind of a profound feeling of you are safe. And, you know, how rough could it be with the people, or how light could it be? So in the end it looked similar to that. As you can see, there's a bit more fog, so we have a bit more atmosphere in it, we have light, and we have these figures who are like cardboard outcuts. And what we did to bring this building back to life is to take, as you remember, when we're talking about immersion, we did a narration through the building, and we choose 3 different characters, I will explain later, who have a journey. So they are visiting the building, and we as users are following them. So we have the visitor, Walter Schatz. He's his first time in theater, so he's kind of quite amazed about foyer and all that. He's like going to the auditorium. We have the revue star Fritzi Massari. I mean, Walter Schatz is a fictional person, but Fritzi Massari was a real person, so we had a lot of archival material about her. And then we have the technician Otto Kempowski. This is also fictional, so we had a lot of fun to invent those persons. And he is a young lighting technician, in love with the dancer, of course. And he brings us from the back side of the building into his area of field of work. So those are the 3 characters. And as a virtual reality user, you can pick one of them, or one after each other. So you have 3 different stories, approximately 10 minutes each. So in total you have a 30 minutes experience, choosing which character you want to follow. So and how did we do that? How did we really take care of those stories? Like this, as stage designers work with little figures and we discuss, okay, if the Walter is going here, we as users are following from that side, so you not only have to create the storyline for Walter, you also have to decide the camera or the perspective you as a user is following. So that's what we did with that little fingers too. Yeah, so it is more complex as you think in the beginning. And of course we had, as stage designers, always do like a storyboard, like really thinking about emotions and about viewpoints, about perspectives, because in virtual reality, everything is around you, but you, as a stage designer, can really take care of in which angle you enter the next room, for example, to have the nice shot of the room. So that we did for every person. And now I show you the trailer to get an idea of how it looked in the end. And it's always difficult to show virtual reality in 2D. So that's right. It's in German, that's not so important. So come with us in the virtual reality, and here you see how much atmosphere in the end was there. In this non-existing building. And join the three characters, like the visitor Walter, the lighting technician Otto, and the singer Fritzi Masai. Yeah, and just to give you some screenshots about the look and feel, I mean, this is the scene outside of the building. You see that it was a red facade. We didn't know because in all pictures they're black and white and, you know, plans as well. So that was part of our research to really identify. Or here, like in the foyers, or like that, you've seen that. Very good. And in the end, Walter sees, of course, Fritzi Masari on stage. Like the virtual experience ends with the rising of the curtain. So you don't see a show, you see the 10 minutes before the show, which is, I think, most of the times the most exciting moment in theater. And like at the same time, Fritzi Masari, who was quite famous in that time, like accompanied by photographers, enters the building from the side and has a talk with the man at the door, and you know, in her wardrobe, flowers from some lovers and so on. And she is quite old already in that time, and you get a quite emotional story about, you know, the critics in the newspaper say she can't sing anymore and so on and so on. So she's kind of nervous getting on stage. So here you see also some text in space where she's telling her doubts and so on. Yeah? But then of course in the end curtain rises and you enter with her on the edge of the stage and in front of you 2,000 people. So this is really a goose, what do you say, that goose Gänsehaut moment, like where it's really emotional because you are so immersed as a visitor, standing with her on stage. So that's what we exactly wanted to create, this feeling of being there in that space, excited about this performance. And yeah, Otto enters through the other entrance, and of course he needs a beer first, so he goes to the canteen, but then he takes us to his best place, like on the lighting bridge, of course. And what you see here in blue is that cloud machine I will come later to. Yeah? So he explains us some technical details about the cloud machine, because that was one of the rare theaters who had a cloud machine. And you see the cloud machine in action, which you could never see. So he dreams about his love to his girl. And then he goes to the lighting gang to put the spot on Fritzi Masari. So all stories come together in the moment where the curtain rises. Okay, and maybe you noticed there are some objects in that building. So we used not only the narrative thing and the three stories through the building and the building as a hero itself. We also have a different level or layer in that project using objects from the famous theater collection at the Stadtmuseum. I guess at the Scala there's also a collection, right? So if we would have been in Italy, we probably had cooperated with them. And as you can see, they had some original entrance tickets or the original poster or some autogram, we call it. Yeah, I guess it's in English the same, right? And what we did is we digitized those objects and put them onto Sketchfab, which is a platform and still there, so you could search for our project and you can see all those objects. And we brought them into that virtual building. So it's kind of an exhibition space as well, so like a museum. And for example, this famous serviette, like a tissue, where Max Reinhardt and Pölzig did the first sketch. That is our entrance object into that project. So we took it into the virtual world. We also visited the theater cabinet in Leipzig. Maybe you know it. It's one of the smallest but most beautiful exhibitions of theater technique, old lighting systems. Everything is working, and this is the person who's really taking care of it. So it's worth a visit if you come to Germany. So what our developer did is to reconstruct those old projectors or old lighting technique to bring it then into the building. As you can see here, this is, this is this old cloud machine. The original is im Theater Plauen-Zwickau in Germany. So we went there, we took a lot of pictures and did a 3D reconstruction of that. You know what a cloud machine is? What does a cloud machine? Does anybody know?
Is a central unit to extend for extension of lighting and other effects, I think.
Yeah, I mean clouds. It projected clouds, and the good thing was that it could turn around. As you see, I don't know, it's like 20 mirrors. So it projected on the walls around, on the circular horizon, right? And then you could have moving clouds. It's like a effect machine, quite early one. So it's one of the earliest projection apparatus. So it's only 5 are existing, so everything else is destroyed. So we found it really important to save it and to present it and to bring it to the public. And it's also about knowledge, right? To see how those function. So just to give a short view behind the scenes, as we work like curators in a museum or for exhibition, of course we had like for every, or for film, like a storyboard, we had the perspectives, we had like what is the narration in that minute, what objects are shown in which space, so that we really see if it's well organized in terms of dramaturgy. So there's a lot of work and a lot of Excel sheets behind the scenes. What is this? Yeah. Here is a screenplay from Lea, who is organizing the lights. So this is the game engine Unity, where this project is made. And you could also compare it to theater, because now she has to really adapt every single light source and light quality, as you can see here, on every scene, together with the audio. We recorded with different actors. And so here comes everything together. Let's see. Yeah, here are the light sources, and there are many. Yeah, so it's a three-dimensional model. But you know, every fog, every light, every shadow has to be organized, of course. Yeah, I found it always really interesting to see how complex such a work is. Okay, so this is in German, but as you can see, we were like 5 people in the core team, but you know, there's so many topics dealing, if you want to do a VR experience, from the original objects, to actors, to the physical, to the graphics, to the storyboard, sound design, music, curation, concept, light, coding, scenography, 3D modeling, illustration. Of course, you need to do press and marketing and so on. Reconstruction, character design, animation, and project lead. So many jobs in that area of working, which I found really interesting. So in total, so many people worked on that project, like from sound recording to archive to digital reconstruction, right? Musicians who really did the opening music for that scene. And here you can see, hopefully, yeah, how it was presented then in the end. So there are some images from the testing. So there's a big screen where other visitors can watch you over the shoulder, and you as a visitor are on a chair to look around yourself and so on. So you can see it at home, or you can see it in the Friedrichstadtpalast at the theater, or we also have a YouTube version of it, because that's the easiest way of bringing it to the public. I mean, the best thing is to use a VR goggle, but of course you can see it on YouTube. It's not so much fun because it's flat, but still the project is documented. Yeah, coming from there, we discussed what does it, I mean, where can it bring us, yeah, what's next? So we had a lot of fun developing these narratives and those characters, so we probably, if we would have more funding or money, we would develop new narratives. I did it with some students, so we did the architecture voice, for example, like, or another play or some, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you would like to do it, but the material is there, so we did further concepts for the building, like jumping into different time slots, for example, yeah? Or use the stage for VR performances, because the building is reconstructed perfectly now, so you can use it for virtual performances. Or you could take the method and adapt it to other buildings or other cultural heritage sites, yeah? Or you can take the data and run. So all the data is on our website, you can download it and do whatever you want with it. So thanks to the funding, we have really had the possibility to do everything open source and provide it to the public. So if you go to the website, you can use the Große Schauspielhaus to do whatever you want. And some students already did. So, or you write an email. Yeah, so that was the first part. Jump into theater history and the virtual world, and I'm open to questions now. Yeah, thank you. Are you used to VR? And maybe I can hear some voices. Who did ever used a VR on his head? VR headset. In a museum, sometimes in museums, or you have like in tourism, a lot of VR. Or playing, of course, playing. I'm not so into playing or gaming. Game?
Yes.
Yeah? What kind of game?
I tried Half-Life Alyx, that is a famous VR game. And then I tried the VR in a museum. They did an exhibition on Monet here in Milan. And the last part was a tour in his
tour in his building.
Yes.
Okay.
In his life in general.
There are also some VR projects where you can dive into famous paintings, for example.
Yeah.
Are there other examples you have?
Simulations of flying.
Yeah, flight simulation. True. I always have the problem with the motion sickness. You know what? Motion sickness is a big topic in VR. Where you feel like ill or clumsy because like the virtual world is doing something else than you are doing. Yeah? I step here and then it goes there. So that was also a big thing here because visitors are going like upstairs, but of course not in real. So we need to really take them carefully up the stairs and turning them around. And we did a lot of testing on, okay, and then, you know, people have different motion sickness abilities. Some of them don't get ill at all. Some of them, they just do one step and it's okay, it's nothing for me. So how to find the sweet spot between taking care of them and does them like want to feel them comfortable, of course, but still we need to get them up the stairs. So it's kind of sliding, slowly sliding and then turning and not fast. So we did a lot of experiments with that. Other experience? Somebody want to share some experiences? Is it difficult to imagine, or did it get clear how that project works? Did you want to see it? Other questions? Which field of subject are you coming? Are there any architects in here? Or no? Any theater history? Any actors, musicians, artists? Sound design? No. Management?
Dancers.
Okay, dancers. All right, so you should use the stage for dancing.
And technical theater.
Technical theater, okay. So you probably love the Otto Kempowski. What else? Where are you coming from? Which field of management?
Before I have experience in finance for several years, and then in Accademia, fundraising, sponsoring for arts, culture, and performing arts.
Cool. What else? Where are you coming from?
You are dancers.
Oh, dancers. Interesting. Okay. Would you like to dance on that stage? Teachers, yeah. And I mean, especially in dance, there is a lot of research in some motion suits where you can, you know, where your movement is tracked and then represented in a virtual avatar-like thing. Did you have contact to that, or is it not yet here because it's expensive? On videos. But you're curious, you want to like to try it, yeah? Well, I know in Berlin, I think the Staatsballett did some experiments with it. So, like the Cyberräuber, maybe you can send a link. The Cyberräuber is a German art collective. They experimented a lot with dancers and did like virtual dance performance with real and virtual dancers coming together. So it was a live performance, but in VR.
In Milan, there is MIT, Digital Culture, is a European Center for Digital Culture that is really interesting because it is a big area in which everyone who is experts in contemporary arts all over the world meet the other to establish connections, to create a community,
Good.
and so on.
Good. Are you going to cooperate with them? Yeah, cool.
Yes.
Nice. Are there any more questions? So if not, maybe we do a little break,
Yeah.
get some fresh air, and a coffee. Okay, so welcome to the second part. Maybe we do 45 minutes and then another short break, because I know it's kind of quite complex and hard to understand, so I try to make it easy and simple, but please raise your hand and ask questions. And you also offered that we can translate things. If you have an Italian question, I'm sorry, I'm not into Italian, but we can translate it. So, yeah, welcome to the second part, and the title is Immersive Knowledge Transfers of Communication and Learning Environments in XR, mixed reality, whatever reality. And you know, if you think about learning in school or in university, you probably think about books and auditoriums and maybe some one-to-one hands-on exercises and for the technicians. And so that is our cooperation partner in Berlin, the former Beuth Hochschule, University of Applied Science, where the only program in Germany for theater technique and management is. You probably know it because it's similar to your university then, similar for that program. Yeah. So that's in Berlin. And this is Professor Stefan Rolf is explaining us chain hoist. I'm not into technique, so for me it was really a new thing to get to know this technique. You probably know what it is to load up heavy things. So this is the situation where students are getting taught. So professor and students around that table. But in 2020, you know what happened, the pandemic was there, so that kind of teaching was not possible anymore. I mean, because this is a luxury situation, to have big studios or big workshops to explain things. So what we did is, we took his exercise about the chain hoist, and put it into virtual world. So we digitized all those parts of the chain hoist, and I guess I have a little video, and then did little exercises. That's not working. Should be a video. Well, at least we did an exercise exactly as it would be in the analog world, but you could put on your VR glasses and do this exercise of putting together every single element in that chain house. So you got to know all the elements. Or you could also have some exercises about, you know, there's so much load, how much can it be on that side? Ah, now it's working. Yeah. So different tables, and you could do that exercise together or alone. So that was quite fun and was first experiments for us how to bring an analog exercise into the virtual exercise. And of course, in a virtual world, you don't have any, you know, you're completely open with scale or even with weight, so nothing hurts because it's all immaterial. So of course, you could now think about other steps doing it. So for us, it was really nice to see how new forms of learning and teaching formats could be possible in virtual reality. So you could, like, the learning in space is really important, not only with the books or like with your head. So using the space is a quite virtual thing. You are independent of time and place. So university closes at 8, but you can learn at midnight or like exercise at home. It's a lot about the process knowledge and not only about the results. There's a new era culture and it's adaptable knowledge. I mean, these are all topics which are in like teaching in the moment, but especially for virtual reality, those are important topics. It's about immersive learning. So we learned the word immersion. So it's a lot about really bring it to the body. And it's quite playful. So it's much more fun than just reading the book or doing the exercise in theory. And it's experience-oriented learning, yeah. So this is what I think every learning should be like, and it's collective learning, so doing things together, learning from each other and doing it together. So what we did is taking that experience, which we did in our little team of 6 people, we went to the school and said, okay, now let's do that together with the students, and students that was kind of a cross-semester elective program, they could choose our course, so we get into the university and we teach them how to create a virtual learning exercise. So that was the first thing we did as an example, and now they should invent some new learning formats. And this course was basically online in Zoom because it was Corona, so it was really difficult to teach virtual reality in a Zoom. And they learned coding, so they learned to really build those exercises. So that was the team. And what came out are 6 prototypes in 2 semesters, so we did it over 1 year. And I will show you some exercises they invented. So the first one was named Connect, and it's about an affair or an exhibition space. It's a lot about media technology and cables. I mean, I'm addressing, you are studying that, yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. Because I'm not an expert. For me, that was completely new, but it was so much fun to find the mistakes or the, you know, some cables were not plugged in probably, or some things were not put on, and you had to find them in that thing and repair it, because you had 10 minutes until the show or the speaker was coming. So there was a lot of pressure. You had this gaming-like atmosphere. And you could gain some points, or you can play together. So it was a lot of fun in digital world to reorganize and repair all that. And as you can see, it looks quite original, right? Like in real world. So there's no artistic approach to it. It was really about having a one-to-one virtual thing of the existing stuff to learn all the connections, materials, vocabulary, all that you could learn here. Let's check. This is another thing about rigging. And also here, before you put up the rig on top, you have to find the mistakes. It's a hazard detector. Some of the mistakes were quite simple, like a hammer laying on top of it. Of course, everybody could see it, it's obvious. But some of them were quite subtle, like a missing sign, as you see here. Huh? Every sling has to have a sign, for example, with a date on it, has to be proven. If it is not proven, then it's a mistake, so you are not allowed to put it on top. So that was a game about finding mistakes, and there was also like this, as you can hear, there's like a stressful atmosphere as it is in theater or in fairs. So you have 5 minutes to be ready, something like that. So it was fun to play. And this was all made by students. Then we had a Klangraum, so a sound space. That's about microphones. And also, I'm not an expert in microphones. What they built is a sound studio where you could test different microphones. What you normally do in a real situation, that you have some instrument, different instruments, so you could choose the instrument. And then the exercise is to take the right microphones in the right angles, and the audio changed. So that was quite, from the coding point of view, they had a huge database. They recorded everything in real, put it into the virtual, and so you could really try out different microphones. So perfect exercise for virtual world, I guess. And getting more and more complex if you have not only one instrument, but 2 instruments or a whole band, and then you could change the space. So, of course, a lot of fun and try out and experience with a lot of, you could be there as long as you want, because it's not closing or next students are knocking on the door. So, and there were some, that was about lighting, like basic light experiments, as you probably all know. And you could arrange little scenes in the virtual world, like taking lamps and putting them on the scene and see how the effect is. It's much cheaper than do it in one-to-one on the real stage, of course. Yeah, and that one was interesting. It was like, I think the course was named Mechanics, and I'm not into mechanics, but this is the bending beam, maybe you know it from school. And this is like a band, and you have to decide how much kilos you are allowed to put on which point. And as you can see in that graphic, this is normally something you really have to calculate in school. Yeah? That's
it's like Vectorworks, for example, but it's more interactive, I think.
It is, because I think I have a video here too. Let's check. Okay, I go. They had also a little storytelling narrative there. They had fun to do that here. So what it is, basically, it's a 3-dimensional formula, right? So you could put things on it, and it's calculated, and then you get a draw sentence, right? Or level 2. So it's like a game. You get an exercise and put things on there. This one. So to put some lighting equipment on it, or make mistakes, have fun. Ja, und dann gibt es einen Free-Play-Modus, where you can just experiment how much you could hang on that beam before it breaks down. So I found it quite practical exercise. I would have loved to have that in school because like on calculating it was so abstract, and here you get the direct feedback, right? Which you would never get in real stage situations. Because it's much more safe, no? It doesn't hurt, and so on. Yeah, so as you can see, the students had a lot of fun in that 2 semesters, and for us, the question here was so good to have all those examples, but it was so difficult to bring it into the real university, to stay there and to be used in the next semesters. And this is something maybe we can discuss later. This is so fantastic to have it, but it's a prototype, right? It's not meant to be used by hundreds of students. Probably that would need another step, and then it takes a bit more money, and you need the equipment, and this is a question which I have no answer. But as you told me, it's the same problem here as in Germany. To really get into long distance and really stabilize those projects is such a huge amount of money and time and work and power you need to make it an everyday thing for students and teachers. I think the problem is not the students, the problem are the teachers very often, because they are afraid or have not the knowledge to stabilize that, right? So in that moment we came from outside, encouraged the students to do so. They have the knowledge that students go after 2 or 3 years, they, of course, but you need teachers and professionals in the university to take care of such exercises and technology. So that's the future, but I think it's a long way to go if this should be daily life. And I'm not saying that it's the analog digital discussion. Of course it's nice to have the atelier workshops and studio, the one-to-one hands-on situation, but at the same time that could be a second layer to be there, right? As an addition, not as an to cut off the other thing, right? So
universities can share their own software to other universities, it would be great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all that is on the website you can download, but you need the VR glass or you need a computer, and you need somebody who's taking care of exactly that, like this first step, and then you can use it.
Yeah, but the problem is the language.
Yeah.
Because it's not in English.
But it's so easy to translate it. So language is not the problem, because you have the 3D data, you have the programmed exercises, but you need somebody in school who has fun with that and who develops it. Maybe you. No, really, I'm not joking. So if you're interested, we can talk to, because the data is there, it just needs people who want to take care of it. Yeah.
Great job.
And you need the space, and yeah. I mean, a similar thing, and I can go a bit more quickly, we did with Garriot's. I don't know if this is it's a German company for fabric and curtains, and also for curtain rails. So what you see here is where you have put the curtain on and put it from left to right in theater. And this is Andreas, and he is selling this curtain rail worldwide. It's a standard product in every theater. I guess at the Scala they have some Garriot's curtain rails. If you next time you can check. And it's a simple thing, but it's complex to build together because there are a lot of different little things. And what we did is an online interface, like imagine an IKEA description on how to build things for curtain rails. And we decided to do it as a web application. So basically it's a website with an step-by-step instruction what to do next. It's in German, but you could put every language in it, yeah? So at the beginning you have like all the different elements, and then you put it together, and then it says, okay, put this plus this, you need this tool, like IKEA. And what we then did is we tested it at the German theater in Berlin with technicians, because in Corona and in the pandemic they all had a lot of time, so they were open for those testings. Like if you would ask them today, they probably wouldn't have any hour on stage to test things like that. So the good thing on the website is, and then maybe I go back, it's called WebXR. It's a technology which enables us, because it's a new standard, to put the content on a browser. So you don't need an extra software to use it, and you can use it on any of those devices. So it could be augmented reality, or it could be virtual reality. So you could use it in the class or on your phone. It doesn't matter, because it is a website. And you could also use it as a website. So you go there and see it on the screen. So in fact, what we did a testing on stage that like the technicians should, and we had the curtain rail there. One team should build it without this aid, or without that virtual thing, as they normally do. We don't need this digital thing, we can just do it as always. Like since 100 years we do it like this. And the other team could use those digital layers, and it was so fun to see how they managed to do. Here you see the augmented reality version with a tablet, or here you see the augmented reality version with glasses. So this are AR glasses, and you have like a joystick, And this is a collage. So here you could see what he is seeing, right? So he sees the finished curtain rail in front of him, and he could move it in and like move it in space with his controller. Or he is using the virtual reality version of it and has a controller where he can put things on it. So he's building he's training to build a real one. So, and you know, lots of like the results were quite amazing because lots of the younger technicians who are trained in a, you know, you have to do a 3-year training. They said, okay, it's the first time that I can take my tempo and my time to learn how to build it, because normally I have no time on stage to really train it. Everything is stressful and they expect you to do it even if you didn't train it. So they loved it that they can train at home, for example. You know? And that was just one example where we found it really practical to develop things for technicians to be trained at home or in other countries, in other languages. So, and similar things we did at a little stage in Wohnsiedeln, which is really in the rurals in Germany. I think it's one of the biggest nature stages in Germany. Say that? Nature stages? Yeah. Stages in nature, yeah, like with rocks and mountains and forest, yeah. And as you can see, that's quite a complex stage. Especially in winter, and you have a lot of staircases, and this stage is going to be renovated. And you know, this is the plan on the left side. It's a mountain basically, so you have more than 20 different stage platforms on different heights, and you know, it's really difficult to show on one plan. So what we did is we went there and we did a 3D model you can do it with your iPhone camera, because there's so many apps where you can scan the environment, and this was one walk around in winter, one walk around the mountain, and our developer Sasha just took his phone and scanned everything in, so we had a wonderful 3D model, quite easy to produce, not expensive, and then we helped them to organize their planning meetings. So what we wanted to do is kind of also a website where you can have the 3D data, but then use it as augmented reality tool for planning discussions. For example, with the head of town, it was always so difficult to convince the head of town, you know what I mean, Bürgermeister, to give more money or to understand why it is so complex and to understand why it is so important to invest in that project. So what we did, having this plan, and then with this augmented reality thing, we could show different aspects of planning, for example, yeah? Only the staircases or only the stages, or like having different layer of explanation.
And so what about foreign test, some designer, because outside is different.
Yeah, and especially, yeah, and of course this model was also meant to be, and I will come back later to that, to have virtual rehearsals, especially because the Bauprobe, which is kind of a German word, you know what Bauprobe is? It's like I have some slides, like in the theater productions, quite early the Germans do a Bauprobe, which is a mock-up situation before the rehearsals start and before it gets into the workshop. The stage design is put on stage with like just some wood and some cardboard and some basic material to check the dimensions and to check the scale. So, and this is made like weeks before, and especially in this summer festival stage, this is always in winter. It's so cold, so you can't do that. That's why it's an interesting case to do it in a virtual way, in a warm room. So also for that, this model was good. So also here you see they had an analog model, like this, what they built, which is good to have a model, but at the same time it's kind of unflexible because you can't show different aspects of, okay, now I want to show only the trees, or now I want to show only the staircases, or special aspects of construction. So it could be, that's what I'm saying, analog and digital work together. So this is good interplay between them. No? I'm not saying that the analog model is bad. It's good, but the digital layer, like the augmented layer, can help to explain things for getting more money. Yeah, and a similar thing we did with the Canon project. I think we talked about it, which is the theater technical history project we did together with 9 different countries. Spain, Italy, Chris van Gouten will come and show a bit more. And basically it's a huge database about theater history, like with pictures from archival objects, descriptions, and what we did is the 3D models of some of those historic elements. For example, the wind machine. And here you can hear the sound of the wind machine. Because normal database, they only show pictures and text, but we found it really important to show some 3-dimensional stuff. And here you see Chris, and yeah, on one of his favorite teaching elements, the timeline. It's a huge, I guess, 6-meter long timeline where he tries to explain theater history to his students and theater technique history. And it's fun because you see really the relations between things. And we worked together because we wanted to here you have the wind machine again, to take this timeline, and you could either use it on a table or on a wall. Everybody can print it by himself. And so what we did is we worked with some QR markers, and you could take the augmented reality, like it's a tablet, and scan the marker, and then the tablet will give you more information. So we did some prototypes for that. Let's check. Yeah. Please scan the marker. What do you see? The cloud machine. So you can see we used some objects from the other project to put it onto the timeline. So now you could read about the cloud machine and about how it works, and like a Wikipedia basically, right? But in a 3-dimensional way, you could really turn it and see it. And you could imagine that you can, what you see here, I think that's Shakespeare's Globe, I don't know. No, that's the wind machine. You could play the sounds, you could play little videos. So as a teaching tool, imagine like you have a full classroom, like 10 tablets, and everybody could have his own learning journey with that. Or in an exhibition, you could, I could at least imagine a lot of different cases where I can use that as a method, yeah? And yeah, you can work together, you can zoom in, yeah, you can play it. So quite simple. So in fact, there is this database behind it, and everybody can fill it with more data and more objects, so it's a growing thing. What else? Architecture was a topic, so of course the große Schauspielhaus could also be on that timeline, and now there's a small model we watched through that database. Yeah, and here you see how we can use it on a wall, so teacher, student, like with AR and tablet, so that's maybe our teaching sessions in future. I would love to see that, but that's not the reality. Yeah. So maybe now talk a bit about the virtual Bauprobe. And if I look at the theater production process, and that's in German, but I'm going to translate. Of course, everybody knows where the premiere is, like the opening night, but before that, a lot of other steps are coming. I guess the theater management people know that, and dancers as well. You start with, okay, which piece are we going to play? We do a concept. The stage designer will make drawings and sketches, and then it comes to when the team has his concept. It comes to the Bauprobe. Like I'm talking about the big operas and the big plays. So that there's the Bauprobe. I guess I have it here. And then it goes to the workshop, and then a rehearsal start. So, and also after the premiere, we have like maybe the pieces going to other places, and you got a restart of the project. So there's several moments in this process where we thought it would be so interesting to work with virtual and reality. So we looked especially at this design process. I'm not so much going into it, so how to create things in VR. There are lots of softwares where you can draw in VR or build stuff in a one-to-one scale. So for designers and scenographers, this is quite an interesting tool. But also for the Bauprobe, we looked at very different softwares because we researched the market and said, okay, there are so many different softwares and you could download it from our website, and we make a huge matrix to see, okay, how much costs it, what data do you need, how easy is it to work with it, so that you have a guideline on, okay, for that case, I could use that tool, for example, because we decided not to invent a new software. It doesn't really need one, because there are so many different softwares already there. It's much more about the right combination about the softwares. So what we did is we developed 3 workflows. An easy one, a cheap one, everybody could do. That was Mozilla Hubs. And a more complicated one. So what on our website is there is that every theater can just download the workflow and follow the instructions to do the virtual Bauprobe. And we did several workshops, so that's more like a training program where we went to theaters and worked together with them to really test it out. So this would be a typical Bauproben situation. So really a mock-up of stairs and walls, as you probably have it here on your rehearsal space. But is this sound? What the nice thing is on the 3D model is you can scale it. So you can be there one-to-one, or now at the moment we are talking about a model. And you can make drawings in it, or sketches, or you can say, okay, this needs to be higher, or that needs to be lower, and so you can have a discussion about it. My colleague Vincent Kaufmann, who was part of my team, did that for the theater in Kassel. And in the pandemic, what they did is they built a huge construction system on stage. So that's the auditorium, that's the stage, and put all the visitors on stage on different levels. So quite complicated construction, as you could imagine. And so that is the ground plan. I'm not sure if you can read it. So right is the auditorium, and on the left you see this huge construction. And they did several operas in that. And what they did, that's Mozilla Hubs, I think it's not existing anymore, but it was a website, a web-based virtual world where he put in the theater model, and you see those little avatars who always look quite funny, and you could meet there with different people. So you don't need in Zoom, you meet in the theater in Kassel, and you can discuss about those things. So it's easy for actors, dancers, directors to discuss about the play and the design of the space in the actual place, and not only on plans or photos. And so this is a screenshot from that session he did. So Florian is the director of the theater, and Sebastian Hanek is the stage designer, and Vincent. They met in the actual stage design and discussed things about, okay, here somebody wrote something on there, so that needs to be whatever, yellow instead of green, whatever, yeah? So you see that it's a kind of a rehearsal situation or discussion meet-up in the actual space. Also here, you could move things around, like this is an avatar with some hands, and they could really take the chairs and put them somewhere else. Just some green screenshots. It doesn't really look nice, but that's not the point. It's about the construction thing in that case, yeah? And the other thing is, again, I think this is Sketchfab. Sketchfab as a platform. He could upload some of those models quite easily to that Sketchfab account. There's like Spotify for music, so it's Sketchfab for 3D data, and so every scene could be a different 3D model. So at any time at midnight, people can see the 3D models. It's quite easier than just send data via email, and they can rotate by themselves. And let's see, I guess I have some a little video of that wonderful model. And we talked with the team about this process, and they said, okay, they wouldn't have done it in that short time if they wouldn't have had this wonderful model and this possibility to do this virtual Bauprobe for every time. So they met there every week in the model. And during the pandemic, it wasn't possible to travel, so that was the solution. And as you can see, it is kind of detailed, but it's not too detailed, because in VR, you need a kind of light data, because it's rendered live, so it has to be too detailed. Yeah. So, also some projection screens in there. And that, I guess, was there for 1.5 years, and I had several operas in there. The acoustic was not good, but it was nice and interesting as a solutions to have the audience on stage, right? Yeah. So that is kind of, I guess, my last slide for that topic. But what you can see is, even in university or on a real theater, there's so many good possibilities to bring in VR or AR for learning and training and security, or even for production issues. So for me, it was really nice to see what is possible, and the theaters are using it. Universities, as I said, it's difficult to implement, but like the construction departments and theaters, they are using 3D data, of course. Maybe they're not using VR goggles, but they're using 3D data to discuss things, of course.
In which way theaters are using these resources, for example, for TFM, for training, for their resources, or in other ways?
But they're using it for pre-production. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you go to the Scandinavic, like Norway, Finland, or Sweden, they're much more into it. They have an own department for virtual Bauprobe. Like all their productions are going through this kind of 3D modeling and rehearsing in stage before it comes to the real stage. So they solve all the problems in 3D. Of course, like there are then some real world problems will come later, but you know, that saves a lot of time. It is expensive, but it saves a lot of time and conflicts in advance. So before they come to the real stage, all the lighting was made in 3D already. So if you want to know more about, you need to go to the Northern Europe. So that's why Finland, Sweden, they have great departments in their theaters. In Germany, there's some theaters who work like that, not all of them. I'm not sure about Scala. I'm not informed. Probably not, but yeah. Because you also have a good connection to the workshops then, yeah? So I guess 3D data or 3D models is quite common in construction, but you know, you have this interdisciplinary working with that model. That should be the aim, yeah? That the stage designer, costume designer, the dancers, the actors are meeting in that space. That is something we should achieve. That not every department is doing its own model. Or
Because also performers are involved in this.
Could be, of course.
So,
Yeah. Like especially when it comes to the, we call it Wiederaufnahme. So there was the premiere, and you have several shows, but then 1 year later, it comes again, and you have a new cast. A new technician team, yeah. And it's so easy to bring them to the model and explain the whole stage before the rehearsal starts, so that everybody knows, okay, this is quite high art. It feels, I mean, I can go up on stage virtually and see, okay, this, and I don't have a kind of thing here, so you can know the security things you can discuss before you go on stage. You get a feeling for the stage. And even rehearsals you can do there, yeah. It's additional, it's not meant to be cut off the real rehearsals, but it's training before you go on stage. Different aspects, could be security, could be content or art questions, or dimensions, or colors, or whatever you want to discuss. How did you like the exercises from the students?
They're really incredible. They're incredible. Trying exercising at home with those exercises.
Would be nice, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk to bring the exercises to you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Or feedback? So then I could go to the third part now, or we could do a break. How is energy in the room?
What about budgeting?
What about budgeting?
Yeah, in terms of different options.
It depends on, I mean, the expensive part is the people doing the programming. Sometimes the software, but we used a lot of software which is free to handle, yeah? So it's not even with like artificial intelligence, the coding process gets easier and easier. So I mean, the students learned it from scratch. I'm not able to do it, but I could learn it in half a year probably. But you know, helping them out with our developers was easy. The most expensive part is having, because this is not able to do it, you need a real machine for that, right? The graphic card. So that costs maybe 2,000, 3,000 euros. I don't know, universities have that sometimes, but for the private thing, I don't have it. I couldn't do it at home. And the VR goggles getting cheaper and cheaper, so it's 500 euros or less. Yeah. So that's not the big thing. I think the main problem is really having the people taking care of it, maintaining it, and explaining it to others. You always need somebody explaining it or like bringing it to the students. It's not you can't just take it and do it because you're afraid of it or not used to it. So you need people who are friendly and, you know, showing it how to do it. So that's the main difficulty I always found. Because it needs people who are trained in it and who are helping. And time.
Experience, what about return on investment in different field you have used the new system? For example, lighting sector or stage, sound designer and so on. Have you different tests about return on investments?
I guess the best part is like for lighting and stage construction, and it is used in that field. For stage designers, I have the feeling because they are mostly so single users, they have their method of drawing and building models. They have no need and they have no money to change their way of working, right? So that's why we work together with the Szenografie-Bund, like with other associations, that it's more, because you can't put it on the freelancers, because they have no money to invest in such technology. So that's what I think why it's so important to have the universities, to have other players who share the knowledge and share the technology. Not everybody needs his own glasses, but you need those rooms and spaces where you can share technology. That's important, right? So go in cooperation and find the synergies to do such projects. You don't need to buy it by yourself, so just rent it or lend it from somewhere. Because maintenance is a big thing, and you know, technology is so fast evolving that, you know, this project is so old 2 years ago. I mean, it's nothing, but you would use other glasses now, huh? So we could throw away them, and this is kind of, that hurts me because we invested in buying them. So that's the thing we need to discuss definitely. So it's more about sharing knowledge and technology and making it open and accessible for others. Like, because there's so many boundaries already with the technology, so it's so important to lower it down. Because then it can unfold the whole potential.
If the hardware changes, the software continues to be useful in the...
Yeah, that's the reason why we use the WebXR, like the website thing, because this stays stable where the technology around changes, but it's still a website, so it takes the data from there and it's not on the device. I think that's a good message, that you are not so that you're free of choice which kind of device you're using. So that was a good choice in that time, to be independent from devices, yeah, and developments of market. Okay, then let's have a look in a project called Spatial Encounters. So it's about space, and encounter is about like connecting, yeah, encountering. And it's about co-creation for hybrid real stage experiences. What a title, but we will get to it. And because I'm a musician, I'm really interested in this moment of concerts where the listeners and the actors or the musicians come together, right? And Pierre Boulez once said, it's in English, one should essentially see concerts as a means of communication, as animated contact between active participants, their listeners or creators. So that's exactly what I'm interested in, this, we are talking about those fourth wall moment in theater, right? Here's the stage, here's the auditorium, and there's this invisible barrier. I'm interested in, as you probably see in all those projects, in intersectional crossing of that situation. So we had one leading question in that project: how can we bring musicians and audience together? And how can we activate the audience for co-creation instead of consumption? So it's not about this leaning back and, what is she talking about there in front? It's really about, dialogue and working together on that experience you create. So what we did, this is a musician from the Gewandhaus Orchester in Leipzig. And we did several experiments on how to use virtual worlds in contact with musicians. Here on the right side, I'm drawing something with the VR. He's seeing what I'm drawing and he is interpreting it. Yeah? Here you see the lines I was drawing, and he played music to it. So it's an improvisation situation. That worked quite well. On the top right, we did something else which didn't work out. So that was not such a nice situation, yes? Or on the left side, we had like more persons in space experimenting with him as a musician playing. So we found that really playful, not to produce a project and then test it, but test it quite early. There's a lot of mistakes and things which didn't work out, but we learned a lot from that exercises. And then we had a wonderful cooperation with a cloister in the rurals of Eastern Germany, in Thüringen, where every summer there's a wonderful festival with a lot of musicians from all over Germany coming together there and playing for 1 weekend. And we had an interesting outside place there. As you can see here, that was our concert place, our testing area, before we rearranged it. And we had like 11 to 15 meters, it was one empty space, and we had an area for the activated audience, as we call it. We had the musician on the right side, and we have a VJ, like a DJ but for virtual things. Our colleague Leah, who did the sonography, the live sonography. So that was the setup in this, what do we call it, the barn, it's a barn, Scheune, like this rooftop area. And we had the easel on the left. And that's how it looked like at night. So we had this playing area. On the left side you see the musician, David. You see the audience on the area. On the right side is Leah, our VJ. So what we created is like a triangle dialogue of audience, musician, and VJ. The audience, they had the VR goggles, so they were in the virtual world, and our musician was in the real world. I mean, both are real worlds, but I'm saying real world because he was not in the virtual, but he saw it on the screen what the virtual world looked like. I will explain later. And the VJ thought as well, and they all could react to each other. So it's kind of a reaction space we created, like a dialogue between those three persons. So this is what it's like a collage, because it's difficult to explain virtual reality in 2D. This is what it looked like the audience saw each other in kinds of, they had dresses like with rings, maybe, I have a picture, and they had a word around it. And needs a second. Don't know. So maybe about the costumes. That was our research mood board, and we thought about some ring costumes, and you see maybe like Oskar Schlemmer from the Bauhaus also did this mechanic ballet thing, and we had Corona pandemic, so we thought it's good to have 1.5 meters distance, so those rings, like here in the mock-up, they were also meant to have a distance function, which didn't work at all because people tried to merge. So that was a learning. If you give the audience something to play, they will play. So what it was like, this dress kind of moved with you. So people, that was something really important. We want people to move. So give them something playful that they are able to move. So they wanted to show this dress moving, so that's how it worked. And then they come together because, ooh, your dress and my dress are merging, different colors, nice. So easy system worked well. And then we invented this sculpture thing. So between those three people, for example, there was a triangle thing, which depending on where they are on the area, of course, made a different sculpture. So those lines were dropped and then moved to the top. But when you are moving, of course, this was intertwining or like moving. But the rhythm of those lines was made by the musician. So they did the sculpture, but the rhythm did the musician. So that's what we programmed. So kind of a playful element of they are creating architecture or space. And then we had the surroundings, and of course, because it's a live situation, you should imagine that all those world building we are doing here is live rendered on those VR goggles. So we had a really simple world around in different layers. For example, there was a mood board for the cyberpunk world, like pink, more technical, like in the 80s. Or we had like research into, let's take some East German landscaping thing with the yellow fields and mountains in the end, or some sun, moonlight situation, scenery. That part, or white, how it is in a white space, for example. So those scenery was made by our VJ. It was a live decision what would be the next scene. So there were some pre-arranged scenes, but she could mix sky and floor and surroundings by herself, like a puzzle somehow, like an instrument. So in fact, what we invented is an instrument to play with live. So that's a screenshot. Here you see the other persons. It's an early stage, so you are seeing two persons quite together, and you see the scenery. And from time to time, we could build those triangles. And here you see when people go down, of course the dress goes down. And we invented something, for example, when all people go down, everything turns white. But they had to find out together. We didn't tell them. And children, because they are so playful and want to check all those things out, they really recognize quite fast that they can do things together in there. Or if you jump, the whole world is jumping with you. So little effects we put in to get more playfulness from the crowd. And here you can see some different sceneries. It looks quite basic, but it's 3 years old now. At that time, the rendering technique for live rendering, that was the limit. Because you have lines and you have surfaces and curved ones, but it was all rendered in a live situation without cables. So it needs to go through Wi-Fi on at least I think 9 glasses. So 9, every glass was like connected to the other glass because you need the position of the other person. So that was 3 years ago. I guess today would be much easier to realize. But I wanted to show you the video. Let's check. No. Maybe then it's easier to understand. That's view from above. So like at the moment there are 5 persons in it. And we did it during day and at night. So we tested several, I think we did 6 performances in a row, lasting, for example, 20 minutes. And they see each other and they see the scenery. And the musician reacts on what he is seeing the group is doing. So every concert was different. And here you see the sculpture made by 3 persons. And you could have different sculptures parallel in space. And here the children. And the musician could react on that because he was seeing what they were doing. So in fact, it's a live stage design made by the audience. Yeah? So the stage design is not fixed, it's always flexible depending on what the group is deciding. And people were like running or laying down. I mean, I was really scared at sometimes because people felt so comfortable in that role that they really pushed it to the limits. Yeah. So that was our concert experiments, and I guess I have something in here. So what did we learn from that? Because it is a project, and we did some concert performances, but it's never finished. For us, it's a step on a learning experience. So the first point, what is really important, is this iterative development. I don't know if you know what I mean with iterative, to go in loops. To start something, test it quite early, with that you've seen the first test, learning from that and doing it again and again and again. And so the design process, and that is not only for digital projects, this should be for every design process, is much more richful and effective. Not waiting till the end and then having the right solution, but making errors quite early and learn from that. Work with the community from the beginning. So we did a lot of tests with friends and families to learn from them how they used it, because we have knowledge and we know how to do it and how to use it and how we expect it to be used. But it's not about us, it should be about the unknown user. So really quite early take somebody and let him test it. The interdisciplinary approach in all details was interesting because in our team we had developers, I'm a scenographer, architect, my colleague was communication designer, and we had a theater technician, we had people from theater management. So all the design process we discussed in a group, and sometimes it was quite, as you could imagine, but in the end that worked out really well. So we could really early hear the other voices and perspectives in the process. As you can imagine, it is quite a complex project, but in the end, always simplicity versus complexity. Very often, we needed to decide for the simple solution to make it doable and to get things done, because you could easily go in so much details in here, but for us it was so important to get it ready for that festival in summer and to show it and to test it, even if it's not perfect or maybe not detailed enough, or the words are not finished, doesn't matter. Go for the simple things and make it. You need time for testing, and it is time consuming. But if you plan such projects, take those testing days into your schedule. What we found interesting by doing the performance, the on and off boarding of the audience is one of the really main important points. Take time for good explanation on giving somebody a VR glass who never had one, and giving the right words, not saying too much because then they are scared, but giving them the right amount of words and body contact as well, because you touch the people when you put them on the head. You have to train that, you have to test that, you have to rehearse that. It's a really important point, this contact point. Focus on the contact points, on bringing the VR to the people and getting it back. Because after 20 minutes, people are really dizzy. They experience something they never experienced in their life. They're kind of, wow. And then what do you do with them? I mean, you can't just leave them and go. You need to talk to them, they need to sit maybe, they need to drink water. So all those details we never thought about before are really important to make them feel comfortable and to make them feel have a really good experience. It's not only about this virtual experience, it's the before and the after of that journey, which really matters. Yeah, and even if you put a lot of focus on the virtual design, the importance of the physical space, and there we have it again, it's the analog and the digital working together is really important. As you can see, it was well designed with colors, with light, with fog, to make a whole experience, because there the journey starts in the analog situation, not in the virtual. So that comes together, and if we had more time and money, we would probably have more stage design things in there, and so on and so on. And also for that project like this, I talked about it a lot, it's the open systems and sources. So we developed the software, also in WebXR, so it's a website, which can grow and which can be used by other developers or programmers, which can be developed further. So that from the beginning, creating that software or instrument was really important to make it open access. That it's not a one-shot finance thing in our team, but that it can grow and live after that phase. So you can download it from the website and do it by yourself if you need. And you need a bit of experience and knowledge, but it's open source. So that was quite important for us. Yeah, I guess that it is. But also here we can think about what can it bring to us, what's next. We could think of upscaling or uplifting it, like make it larger with more people. We could expand it in terms of hybridity, also how much is analog, how much is digital, and what is the space in between. And also about the site specific. Now it's made for a flat surface, but of course you could imagine this in a different space so that it can travel. We wanted to explore more interactive hybridity, so especially, for example, sound, like every audience member could have a different sound thing in it, or a little story that we told to them, or live actor talking to the people. Yeah, there are so many things you could invent now. The system is there, you just have to do it. Yeah, or we could not only work with one musician, because that was our starting point, but it could be a whole orchestra ensemble, like the flute is taking you as a listener and the cello is taking care of you musically. Yeah, and so a whole new composition could come out if you have more musicians. And not only because he was a classical musician, it could be jazz musicians or whatever, you name it. Yeah, it could be every genre. But could also be other genres, for example, not only musical styles, but you could do it with dancers or with like actors, whatever. I mean, every art form is possible to do kind of an interactive play thing. Puppetry, for example. So we had a lot of ideas, but until now, we didn't have time and money to test it. But this project kind of inspired us a lot to go in the next phase, kind of, yeah. And today it's easier than 2 years ago, so technology becomes cheaper and easier to code and program. But in that, I mean, we were really on the edge on doability. But today it is much easier to do. Yeah. So, all of what I have shown today is well documented on that website, digital.dthg.de. There is an English website, so all the projects, and I can send you the link, or you can scan the QR code. And what I want to point out, we have a lot of blog articles about the glossar, about all those terms I'm using today, about other projects, about how to do a virtual Bauprobe. There are really instructions and download links to do so. There's a blog with tutorials and news. So even if the project is 2 years ago, this is, I think, is still quite nice knowledge source you could use in your school or wherever. If you go to the website, so you can download this. I can put the link in here. I'll send it later. And there's we did a publication about it. It's also in English. It's a huge PDF you can download from the website. Cool. Yeah. Any questions to this artistic approach for technology, which is totally different one, which I have shown in the first 2 chapters. Would that be fun as a dancer to play with it?
It's a little difficult with the balance because it's heavy, but we can use it in other ways. Go into oceanography.
Other questions? Thank you.
Sorry.
How do you take care about the tracking in the spatial encounter?
How we did it?
Yeah.
We built up an own system, but it's basically like a Wi-Fi system.
Okay.
Like all the glasses had signals to our server.
Okay.
We built up
The
there.
tracker with an external tracker or with the
With the
goggles?
software we programmed,
okay.
and the glasses they have signals anyway, huh? And they need to be loaded like for electricity, but 20 minutes is fine. And then we had a second set of glasses the next group was using. Mhm. There are no stage designers in here, huh? No? Because I found it especially interesting to let go that the audience is the designer. We provided several scenes, but in fact they did it. So this kind of changes this attitude of me as being the designer. I'm only helping them to design by themselves. But you
My
had a
personal
question?
experience after using the VR for 10 minutes, I had to stop because my head was, and I had to sit down,
Mhm.
leave the VR.
Mhm.
So I was thinking your question to the dancers because I don't know if it's common or it's only in my case this problem.
Well, it has to do with this motion sickness we discussed earlier. In that experience, the good thing is that everything you see is made by yourself. So that we call it agency. You have a high amount of agency in that experience because if I do the step, I do the step in virtual and in,
Okay.
so there was no motion sickness because everything was quite natural. If I lie down, the avatar lays down and so on. So it was connected quite well. Different in the große Schauspielhaus because there was kind of sitting on a sleigh, like, and that was moving without me moving. So that's why it feels clumsy, the staircase thing. And there you maybe 5-10 minutes, then you, For that, people were there in 20 minutes, then it was more topic of, on the nose, it was sweaty or heavy, and kind of 20 minutes is enough, kind of. But we had no problems with motion sickness. So, but we tested it a lot, that people can use it. And I think it's enough. I mean, for playing games, you could be there for ages, yeah? But it's not healthy, so. But this is something you have to take in mind, that you carefully take responsibility for your visitor in designing those projects.
Yeah, that's true. I tried the first kind of like a Schauspielhaus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you have this motion sickness, it stays for an hour or longer. Sometimes the whole day you're sick. So if it comes, remove the VR glass and drink water or take some fresh air. Don't stay in that mode. Because when it's there, then it's there. Then you have to leave. Yeah, but it really differs. Some people have problems, some not. It's like being on a boat. Some people are boat sick, and some not. Yeah, so that's the same thing. And you can train it. So our developer who spends really hours in VR, they have no problems anymore. So. But in the beginning, it's kind of very often clumsy.
And in terms of human disease, there are limits in the use of glasses for disease.
You mean with if you have glasses, the glasses stay and the goggles come over it. So it's no problem. You can use it with the glasses. And this health topic is a big topic for virtual reality. For example, for Parkinson, is it an English word, I guess? This illness where you can't move. They use VR goggles to train, for example, because you get the image of a staircase, so your brain thinks there is a staircase and you train the body to do the specific movements. Or there are projects for empathy training in teams. So you meet in the virtual world and all are the same height, for example. That was the nice thing on our project. Because normally, people are fat or thin or big and tall and kind of feel, especially on stage, they don't like to be on stage because they feel not comfortable. But in the virtual world, everybody had the same dress at the same height, so they meet on eye level, the avatars. And that was a good thing. So people were more playful because they were all the same, kind of, or all the same different colors, but all the same. They didn't take care about what I'm wearing or I'm fat or thin. So that was a good thing we experienced, that people are really well behaved or well felt and could move more easily on stage than like in normal situations. So there are a lot of good things in virtual world where they can design in a different way.
I'm interested in the teaching opportunities because I think it's very useful for learning for students, but also for overcome some cognitive fragilities, for example. But do you know if there are some studies about the relationship between the using of VR and some kind of these fragilities? For example, autism. In the case of autism, is it good to use VR or is better not, for example?
I guess there is research about it. I only know research about online meetings, that especially people with diseases in autism or like, normally sitting in the last row of a classroom. I don't know if you maybe noticed it in the pandemic, but sometimes those people were the most active one in the digital world because there is this kind of screen and layer in between the teacher and you, so they felt quite comfortable and safe and are more active than in real world. So this is a huge chance also for those kind of diseases to be more active or incorporated in those worlds. Because you have this avatar thing, or you could take on a mask or a hat or whatever you need to feel safe. You could be any character in those worlds. I mean, you probably know that from gaming. If you take on a role, you try something because it's not real. It's not you. You are somebody else. So that's something you could use for teaching as well. Friday afternoon. There are no more questions. I mean, I'm here, I have time, I can stay, but I don't want to. And it's Friday night. Maybe you should go out and have a drink and enjoy it. Yeah?
So thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to me.
Bye.